Hey everybody.
Hey guys. Today we are actually done with our travel assignment from last week. We're back in our hometown for a few days before we leave for Europe.
Woohoo.
Yep, we're excited. We leave on Friday. Today we're going to be talking about why you should work with multiple travel companies and how to go about managing working with multiple travel companies. That's something that we get asked about a lot, and we think it's very important to always work with at least two, but usually three. Sometimes we've worked with even more than that, but at least 2 to 3 we think is pretty vital as a traveler. So we'll jump in there in a minute, and Whitney will go ahead and introduce us.
All right, guys. So for those of you guys that may not know us, my name is Whitney Aiken.
And I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we are both traveling doctors of physical therapy. We have been traveling DPTs for about 4 years now. Actually, I think it's exactly 4 years now, right?
Exactly 4 years.
Yeah, so it was 4 years ago that we graduated from PT school and started working as travelers. I started my first travel PT job in May of 2015, and Jared started shortly after in June of 2015. So each week we do these live videos about travel therapy topics. We have a blog, a personal blog where we write about our adventures, and Jared likes to write a lot about finance. That's called fifthwheelpt.com. You guys may know that blog already. A lot of you guys may also know our other website, Travel Therapy Mentor, and that's the one where we do a lot of informational, educational articles and videos and lots of different things to help you guys out that are getting started in the world of travel therapy. So Jared likes to get this video shared up in a couple of groups, so that's what he's doing now. That way more people can join on with us this evening. I see that a few of you have already joined on. It's nice to see you. Hi Sean, hi Ryan, hi Jeff, hi Lauren. If you are watching and tuning in with us, just say hi below. We'd love to hear from you. And I know many of you are supporters that join us every week. If you are watching this later on the replay, which I know many of you like to do as well, we'd love if you would just leave us a comment and let us know that you watched and if you gained any value out of watching the video. So like Jared said, we want to talk tonight a little bit about how it works to quote-unquote work with several travel therapy companies. So this is a question that we get a lot because ourselves, as well as a lot of seasoned travelers, recommend that you work with multiple travel agencies. Travel therapy staffing agencies, and a lot of people who are new to the travel therapy world just don't understand why you would do that and how you would go about that. How does that work? How can you be an employee of multiple companies? So there's just a lot of questions that come with this that we wanted to address tonight for you guys that are kind of newer to this or just getting started. Hi Jeff. Jeff just commented below. Jeff and his girlfriend, I know, just graduated from their DPT programs and are looking to start their travel careers in July after boards. And I know a lot of you guys are in that same boat. Either you just graduated and you've already taken boards, or you're getting ready to take boards and start your travel journeys this summer. So now's a great time to learn as much as you can before you get started with your own travel therapy journeys. So let's talk a little bit about tonight's topic. Why would you ever want to work with multiple travel companies?
Yeah, we've hit on this a few times in past videos, but we get asked about this really, really often. Like, how many companies should you work with? How are you able to work with more than one? We get questions like this probably close to daily, so I figured it'd be a good idea to have a video specifically to refer people to talking directly about this. So I would say there's a few different reasons why you would want to work with more than one company. The biggest ones being that not every company has the same jobs, so you have access to more jobs when you're working with several different companies. You usually can create a bit of like competition between recruiters, so you're not like specifically trying to pit them against each other, but if a recruiter knows that you're working with another company, then they're going to offer you the highest pay that they can right away to keep you from taking a job with a different company. So I like that aspect, that the recruiter can't be complacent and kind of lazy looking for you for a job if they know someone else is also looking.
Yeah, just some healthy competition, more or less. The other thing is not all companies are equal in how they operate and how their budgets work. So some companies for the exact same job might pay you different. So say you're looking for your dream job in San Diego, California, and say there's 3 different companies that all have access to the same job, but based on how that company is operated and their budget, one company might be able to offer you a higher weekly pay or total pay for that contract than the other company, and you never would know that if you didn't work with more than one or keep in touch with more than one.
Yeah, and as we've talked about in the past with things like benefits, some benefits are more important to some people than others. So say, 3 different companies you're working with all have the same job. and you get submitted for it, or you're looking at it potentially, and one of the companies has way better benefits that are important to you that might not be important to other people. So maybe their health insurance is better, or maybe they offer PTO that's something that you're really interested in. Those kind of things might sway you towards one company or another, even if the pay is the same, or sometimes, some companies will pay higher than others. It just depends.
Yeah, and we'll touch a little bit more on how exactly that works if you're working with 3 recruiters and they all have the same job. But I want to touch a little bit more first on kind of the why, and why is it that different travel companies have different jobs. So a lot of people think like, well, aren't all the jobs just out there for everybody to see, on Google or on, what are the other websites where they host them? Like Indeed.com or whatever.
Like that.
So there a lot of where jobs are posted that are travel therapy jobs are on what are called MSPs, or managed service providers. So this is like a big database where I can't talk tonight. Database where hospitals across the country or clinics across the country will post their jobs if they have openings that they need. So a lot of the travel companies will have access to these MSP lists. They have to pay a fee to be able to view that list.
Or sometimes it's also talked about as vendor management services, so VMSs.
Oh, that's what I meant to say. MSP is something different. Sorry, guys. Scratch all that. Vendor management services. MSP is a different terminology in the travel world. So back up. VMS, vendor management system, is like a big database. Where
I thought you knew something I didn't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's something. Managed service provider is a whole different topic, kind of advanced. I don't even know how to explain it, so I'm not going to. Anyway, so the majority of companies will have access to those vendor management systems. However, they'll also have their own private connections. So for example, sometimes companies, like we work with one in Texas that might have more connections just in their local area, or we work with one that's based near DC. They might have more jobs just in their area, or maybe they just happen to have a connection at a certain hospital system or whatever. So maybe some of the other companies don't have those connections that they have. So they'll have like some exclusive contracts that the other ones don't have. There's also some companies that are really big that own some exclusive contracts that they'll get them first, and later on, if they're not able to fill them, then they will get opened up to more travel agencies. But if you are one of the first ones to get submitted with the company that has them exclusively, like First Access, then you'll be able to get that dream job quicker than if you were with company B that didn't get it till later. They kind of got the leftovers.
Yeah, and not only that, but a lot of times those exclusive contracts that the big companies have, even if they can't fill it and it goes to the other companies, they still keep a percentage of it. So if you're going through a different company to get that job, sometimes you'll get a lower pay package because a percentage of that is going to the one that is controlling that contract, basically.
Which I think is kind of where that MSP part comes in. But to be quite honest, I don't understand exactly how all that works. But I think that's what the managed service provider is, when these bigger companies have control over the jobs, and then they'll kind of, they say, oh, we weren't able to fill them with our pool of candidates within the 1 week or whatever we were offered it. So then we had to open it up to these other companies, but they might still take a cut of it.
Hey, congratulations, Matt. I just saw he said he secured a job. When are you starting?
Yeah, so we had talked with Matt a lot and kind of helped him through finding his first job. So congrats, Matt. But yeah, so there's just a few different reasons as to why different travel agencies would have access to different jobs. So if you want, especially if you're interested in certain jobs in certain areas, you really want to open up your variety of options by working with more than one recruiter. Because you just never know what you don't know. If you only work within a company and they say, we only have 5 jobs in all of, Kentucky or wherever you want to be, but then you don't know that there were jobs out there that they just didn't have.
Yep. And we've talked in the past about being lowballed, but we see a lot of times that these, some companies in particular, like 2 that I can think of, will send a lot of messages out and promotional materials out to new grads. They'll work with a new grad. The new grad doesn't know any better or that they can work with more than one travel company. So they start giving them low offers, and that's all they know is this low offer from this one company. And so they'll end up taking a really low paying job when in reality they could, if they knew better and could work with more than one company, they'd get some other offers, realize how low they're being paid. But yeah, a lot of people don't even realize that you can go with more than one company, get multiple offers, and that's a good thing to do for sure.
Right. And especially in the beginning, I know a lot of people that tune into our videos are new grads. A lot of people, more and more, I think, each year are thinking about getting into travel therapy as new grads. But not even new grads, just anybody who's new to the travel therapy world. You don't know what you don't know. So if you only ever work with one company and one recruiter, and they just tell you, this is how the business is, this is just how it goes, this is the pay, these are the benefits, this is just the way we do things, then you don't know that it could be a different way. So I think it's best when you're first getting into the industry to talk to multiple recruiters. Talk to at least 3 to 4 different companies and find out about their benefits, find out the way that they present things to you. A lot of them will send you job offers or pay packages structured a certain way, and it'll help you learn and be more knowledgeable just about the way pay works, because a lot of or not just pay, but just how the industry works in general. Because when you get started and you're green and you're new, you're just so excited. You're like, wow, this is so much more pay than if you were a student, you were making no money. Or if you were a clinician, maybe, oh, it's so much more than I was making at my perm job. So you're just excited to have a job. But you don't necessarily know what questions to ask. And so if one company gives you a whole bunch of information and they tell you things about jobs and they tell you things about the way the pay is structured or the contract is structured, but then this other company doesn't have that listed, then you know, hey, this other company said this, what do you think about that? And you can learn from that experience. And that's how we've learned, is just by talking to so many different, well, 1, travelers, but 2, travel companies. We learn a lot from just talking to the different companies, learning more the business side of things. So if you understand the way the business works, you understand where the money comes from and how you're getting paid and that sort of thing.
Yeah. As travelers, we talked to several companies to start with, but then when we started being more serious about learning and teaching and making videos, writing articles, we reached out to a lot of companies and learned a ton about the industry just from talking to various recruiters, various companies, and them basically telling us how things work on their side and on the back end of things, which is cool.
So I've just met so many travelers or prospective travelers that have said, well, I talked to this one recruiter and she's really great and I just love her, so I'm just going to stick with her. And that's wonderful. It's all about connections and it's all about who you feel comfortable with. But we would encourage you to not limit yourself, especially in the very beginning, to just one recruiter, because you really are not going to be able to grow and learn unless you talk to multiple companies and just learn that way. And you never know if you're going to be lowballed if you only ever talk to one. Even if they seem super nice, it may not be that they're purposely lowballing you. It could just be that maybe that company doesn't pay quite as high as a different one or whatever.
Yep. And something we run into is that the first company someone talks to and they get a lot of information from the recruiter, they feel like they have to take a job through them. Like they feel bad for taking up their time and everything. And I mean, it's a valid concern. And we've definitely been in that situation as well, where we feel bad not taking a job through someone that we've talked to a lot. But you have to understand that it's a business at the end of the day. So you have to think about what's best for you, which situation is going to be best for you, which companies have the best jobs. And I think that's why it's so important to work with multiple companies from the very beginning and be talking to multiple people right away, so that you don't form this. I mean, you want to form a good relationship, but not like a relationship where you feel bad for not taking jobs with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa. We miss you too. Thanks for tuning in. And hi, Amy. I see a couple more people have signed on. If anybody else is signing on right now, if you would just leave us a comment below and just say hi. We'd love to know who's watching.
Or ask any questions you have about this or about travel in general.
Yeah. So we want to get a little bit into talking logistically, how does this work? So one thing I want to talk about that Jared was just mentioning is when you're first starting to talk to these recruiters, it's best to let them know up front that you are working and talking to multiple recruiters. If you run into a situation where a recruiter is making you feel bad for talking to another company, that's not a recruiter you want to work with.
Yep.
So many of these recruiters will guilt trip you and make you feel guilty, make you feel bad about, oh, I thought we were friends and I thought I gave you so much help, I blah blah blah, and you're not going to take a job with me. You need to let them know up front that you are keeping your options open, you're talking to multiple companies, you're trying to learn as much as you can. This is business. If anyone ever makes you feel that way, that is a recruiter you want to walk away from, because this is not a personal friendship. I mean, you do want to build a friendship and build a good relationship with your recruiter, but they should all understand that your career is the most important thing. If you find a better offer with a different company, they shouldn't be butthurt about it. They should think, wow, that's a really good opportunity for you and your career.
Yeah.
So we
And so when we're working with multiple companies and we tell one, okay, we're going to take a job through this company, all of our recruiters say, okay, awesome, let me know when you're looking for another job. So that's all it should be, is like not making you feel bad for not working with them, but just saying like, okay, let me know when I can help again. And that's
and most of the time they're very much like, well, I'm sorry it didn't work out, that I wasn't able to find you that job or that pay that you needed or whatever. I hope to be able to help you with your next job.
Yep.
So they're all of our recruiters are very supportive, and we let them know up front, so it doesn't have to be any of this drama that we have heard from many other travelers that there is drama. So you let them know up front, and like we talked about before, it kind of, inherently breeds a little bit of healthy competition, because it's like, okay, they know up front that you're getting submitted to a job by this other recruiter, so they need to be busting their butt to be trying to find you a job too. And if you have a pay in mind, they need to be trying to find you that pay or match it, hopefully if they can.
And there's also times where you can use that as a little bit of a negotiating chip. So say for instance, you get 2 interviews in the same like 1 or 2 day span, and you interview for both of them. Both of them sound like pretty good jobs. One's through one company, one's through another company. You get offers for both of them. You don't know which one to pick, and you say, okay, I'm thinking about going with this one. And then you tell the other company, is there any way you can pay any more than that? And just leave it open for them. If they can pay you more, then that's the perfect opening for them to give you more money, right? They're willing to, once you already have the offer, all you have to do is sign it, then they're going to be willing to give you their highest dollar offer, especially if they know that you have another offer you're looking at.
Right.
So I think that is the perfect negotiating strategy, and it's a fair way to do it. Just say, hey, I'm already looking at this job. I might go ahead and take that one. Is there any way you can pay me any more? And usually they'll increase it by at least a little bit.
And we always encourage you to be honest. You want your recruiters to be honest with you, so you need to be honest and have integrity with them. You don't want to purposely pit them against each other. You don't want to lie or inflate the numbers, bluff and say, oh, I have this other company that's willing to offer me $1,900 a week. What can you give me? Because hopefully they're being honest the first time around. And sometimes like our recruiters will just come back to us and just say, with my margins and with the way my company operates, I just can't offer you that much more for this job. Or they might say, with this job over here, with the bill rate, we can't offer you more money than what we've already offered you. So if the other job is better for you, go ahead and take it. I love my recruiters, because I've had them say that to me before, like, honestly, I can't match that. Go ahead and take it.
Yeah.
Or they'll come back and they'll say, oh, let me find out. Let me talk to my manager. Let me see if I can move something around. What if I can offer you $100 more a week? Would that make it better?
Or what if I can offer you $300 in CE reimbursement? Or what if I can offer you $200 to travel to and from the assignment, or something like that? They can usually throw something in that will help.
Yeah. So, keep it a healthy, honest relationship. Don't try to purposely pit recruiters against each other, but you can use it, in a nice way for negotiation. Now, something I want to take a couple steps back. If you're somebody who's new and watching this, that has no idea how this works, we have honestly gotten questions where people said, back to the basics, what does it mean to have multiple recruiters? Like, are you having multiple recruiters with the same company, or multiple recruiters, different companies? And they just didn't know how it works. So we're just going to throw it all out there from the basics.
Yeah, so when we say working with multiple companies, we take it for granted that people understand what we're talking about, but if you're new, you have no idea, right? When we say working with multiple companies, that means talking to them, having them job search for you, but not specifically taking jobs with all of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, our last job search, we were talking to recruiters from probably about 5 different companies that were looking for jobs for us, all because we wanted to be in the Virginia area, and we wanted 2 outpatient jobs. So we were, we had pretty strict criteria, and they needed to be near each other, right? So it's hard to find that. So we want as many people looking for jobs for us as possible. So we had about 5 recruiters from 5 different companies looking for jobs for us, and that was what we needed at the time. We needed as many options as we could possibly get, and it worked out well. So what that meant is that all of them are looking for jobs for us at the same time. They're all from different companies. They all have, some of them have different individual contacts. They have different exclusive contracts, and that way we were best equipped to find the jobs that we needed.
Right. So to answer the initial thing, it's not multiple recruiters from the same company. There's no point in having more than one recruiter with the same company.
And most companies won't let you do that anyway.
So it's multiple recruiters with different companies. So you want to have a recruiter with company A, a recruiter with company B, and a recruiter with company C. There's something else to look out for. There's a couple companies that are called sister companies, and they're the same. So the biggest example that we know of is Club Staffing and Med Travelers, and now they've acquired Advanced. So AMN is a corporation that owns Med Travelers, Club Staffing, and Advanced. There's no point in having a recruiter with all three of those companies because they're going to have essentially the same jobs and be essentially the same because they're all sister companies. They're all sister companies underneath the parent of AMN.
Yeah, there might be small differences, but for the most part, you're not going to want to work with 3 different companies from the same umbrella, basically.
Yeah. So you would want to have 3 different companies. So if you're working with more than one person from Club Staffing, Med Travelers, or Advanced, you probably just want to pick one and get rid of the others. So you could have one from, say, Med Travelers, and then have a different one from a totally different company like Core Medical Group or Total Med or some different ones like that, and then another one from Delta, another one from Pioneer, and whatever. So you want to have different recruiters with different companies. And then like Jared said, you're not an employee of theirs. So the way it works when you're very first getting started off, we always recommend that you get advice from current travelers, from us or from other people that are current travelers. Get some recommendations, get about 3 to 4 contacts. Go ahead and set up an initial conversation with them. Just by having that initial conversation with them does not sign you up to be an employee of theirs. You're just trying to get information. We always recommend you just go directly through a recommended recruiter. Don't just go to their website and fill out the information. Don't fill out their application on their website. Don't call the hotline, the 1-800 number. Just go directly through a recruiter that you've been recommended to, because not all recruiters within the same company are good. So if we say we have a good recruiter with company A, that doesn't mean that all the recruiters at company A are good. It just means we like ours.
Yeah, and when you go through the website or you go through the 800 number, you get assigned randomly to a recruiter. And not only that, you get put on their calling list, and you get, sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes you can get like 12 calls in a day from those lists. So you don't want to do that. You want to contact a person through that company that you're recommended to directly, not just a random person in the company.
So you'll have that initial conversation, and all you're going to learn during this is whether or not you like that person. Do you like that recruiter? Learn some information from them, how they do things, see how they submit you for jobs, see what benefits they have, that sort of thing. Then once you've decided, you've talked to 3 or 4, and you narrow it down to 2 or 3 that you say, I could work with this company. If I would be willing to take a job with this company if it comes that time. We recommend that you go ahead and fill out whatever information they need from you. It's usually like they're going to need your resume, they might need your birthday, your social security number, and just like a basic background information on you. They'll have you fill out what's called...
They usually need like a skills checklist.
Yeah,
right?
Skills checklist, which defines which areas you have competence in. So you would just say like check off which things you've had experience in, like peds or geriatrics or whatever. They need this information, and that's called building a profile. So a lot of people are like, oh, and then references. Sometimes they need references. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to fill out information with 3 companies if I'm only going to take a job with one of them. But you need to, because there's no way they can submit you for a job unless you fill out a profile with it, at least have a profile with them, the basic information.
And we were the same way when we started. I'm still the same way. I don't want to fill out a bunch of information I don't have to. It makes me mad to do that. But the reason why it's so important is because, say a job pops up, and we've talked about this example in the past. I interviewed for a job in Yuma, Arizona, 20 minutes after it was posted, and got the offer 10 minutes after the conversation was over. So within a 45-minute period, the job was posted, I was submitted, I got the offer, right? If I saw that offer, the recruiter told me, say, like, hey, there's this job opening here that might work well for you. And then I was like, okay. And they're like, we need your profile to be submitted. So then I have to send them all that information then. And they would have to build this profile in order to submit me, right? That would take probably a day. So I would have missed out completely on that job. So you have to have all that stuff submitted so that you can be submitted quickly, right? That's
so don't be hesitant to give 2 to 3 companies that you like and that you trust your information.
Yep.
Now, we don't recommend that you go out and sign up with 6 of them. That's just going to be too much, and you're not going to gain a whole lot of benefit of having 6. I think having 2 to 3 is the magic number. And hopefully you've had this initial conversation with the recruiter, you've learned about their benefits, you've learned about where they tend to have jobs, all these types of things before you've agreed to submit a profile with them. But don't be afraid to give them your information. If you trust them and you know you're not going to get blown up too much, it's okay. Now, the one thing I do want you to be hesitant on is giving too many people access to your references, because sometimes it can be annoying. Your references will get either a phone call or an email saying, can you fill out this reference form for this therapist? So typically 2 to 3 is the max you want to do. Recently when we were searching for our jobs, Jared said we had opened up our search to about 5 or 6, and I felt like we were bothering the crap out of our references.
Yeah.
And that was kind of annoying. So do be cognizant of that.
Yeah, I would not do that unless it's like I was saying, a special circumstance where you want a specific area, a specific setting, and 2 jobs together. Then you kind of have to do everything you can to get the jobs. But, if you're more open, you're more flexible than we were on this last job search, then you should not need more than 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah. So yeah, just some stuff we want to go over there with like how that works. So kind of Jared alluded to this earlier. Once you've got your 2 to 3 recruiters that you like, that you've had an initial conversation with, you trust, and you've given them your information to build a profile for you. Now you're on this like 3 to 4 week period where you're on your job search. Sometimes it goes quicker than that, but sometimes it's like a 3 to 4 week period where you have all 3 of these recruiters out there searching for jobs for you. So they'll start saying, hey, Whitney and Jared, I've got these 2 jobs in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they'll give you some basic information about it. Like, okay, this is the setting, this is the start date, this is about the approximate pay. Is it okay if I submit you? So this is the point where you want to make sure you don't get submitted by more than 1 company for the same job. So hopefully they can give you enough details about the job. Sometimes they're hesitant to give you all the information because they don't want you to, for example, like steal the job out from underneath them and take it to another company, or go around the company and try to get the job without them. So sometimes they'll only give you some information until they get to know you better and know that you are a therapist that has integrity and honesty. Once you get to have a better relationship with them, now ours will just they'll send us everything. They'll send us the address and the phone number and the exact name of the facility and everything, because they know that we're not going to be shady like that.
Yeah.
So then they'll say, hey, we have this job. Is it okay if we submit you? But you never want to give them permission to blind submit you when you're working for more than one or with more than one recruiter, because blind submission means that they're just going to submit you without asking you. And then you might run into where 2 or 3 recruiters submit you for the same job.
Yep. So you always want to tell the recruiter that you only want to be submitted for jobs when they present them to you and you say, okay, submit me for it. Because if you're only working with one, there's situations where some travelers and their recruiter have a setup where if a job comes up that the recruiter knows that traveler might want, they'll just go ahead and submit them right away. Because then you have the benefit of it going through quickly. But if you're working with more than one company, you don't want to do that because, yeah, like she said, you'll get submitted by 2 or 3 companies, and some facilities will automatically turn you down if you're submitted by more than one company. So you don't want to run into that situation where you're being submitted multiple companies for the same job.
So that's kind of how it works when you're searching for your job list. And you're actually in the process of trying to find the job. So we're going to switch gears and kind of talk about how it works, once you're on contract, and say you take a contract with company A and then the next contract you want to switch. We'll kind of address a couple questions and stuff that came up here real quick, and then if you guys have more questions, go ahead and ask, and then we'll talk more about the next part. So hi Ryan, Barcelona says, hey, thanks so much for your help. So far, we're close to securing our first job. Congratulations, Ryan. I've been talking to Ryan quite a bit. Him and his fiance or wife, actually, I think, are searching for their first travel job together. I'm so glad that's going to work out for you, Ryan. And then our other Ryan.
Lying is so much easier.
He's being silly. Hi, Melanie. Thanks for watching. Jeff wants to know, have you heard of times where recruiters leave you, and for what reasons?
We've had that. The only time that's ever happened was when one of our recruiters left the company. So he actually left the company to go join the police force. So we got transferred to a different recruiter then. And those situations are interesting because then you get put randomly with a different recruiter, which we don't really like. So if that happened and one of our recruiter leaves a company that we were working with and we liked, we would look for recommendations from other travelers for someone else in that company instead of just getting randomly put with a different recruiter.
Yeah. So that's the only time I've ever really heard of a recruiter leaving you. I have heard horror stories in different travel therapy groups where people say they basically had a bad experience with one of those recruiters that was like, oh, I'm just not going to work with you because you're working with multiple recruiters. And in that case,
happens, you don't want to work with them anyway.
Yeah, so. You don't want to work with them anyways. But I don't know any other reason why they would leave you except if they were
sometimes
moving companies.
Or there's a clash of personalities. I mean, there's situations where people just don't get along, right? So that can happen. But it's very rare.
Normally from the traveler's end. Although I have heard from one of my recruiters saying that a traveler was just way too picky and way too
or sometimes pushy about
things. And just they moved him to a different recruiter. And then the other reason would be sometimes the recruiters will move up into like a management position, and sometimes they keep their travelers and sometimes they don't, depending on the way the company is structured. So sometimes that happens. There are some companies that do certain recruiters for certain regions, which I don't love, because then you end up having multiple recruiters with the same company. Like say this job you're looking for something on the East Coast, but the next job you're looking for something on the West Coast. There are some companies that have different recruiters for different areas. I don't like those companies. I think you should always be with the same recruiter. We've worked with most of the ones we work with, the recruiter is the same no matter where you're looking for jobs, but the person above them is different, which is called the account manager. And the way that it works is that your recruiter would just communicate with a different account manager that manages all the accounts or all the clients in one region, but it doesn't affect you.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about switching between companies, between contracts.
Yeah. So a lot of people have questions about how benefits work when you switch companies, because if you're working with multiple companies, you might have one that has a great job that you're not currently on contract with. You take a contract with them, and then you have to figure out when the benefits from the prior company end, when the benefits from the new company begin. And sometimes that can be something that people don't like to deal with, or it makes them stay with one company because they don't want to go through the hassle, right? But it's really not a huge deal for the most part. We talked about in the past health insurance and benefits and how that works switching companies. And so you can usually, if you need insurance coverage between contracts, so say you're going to take 2 weeks off and you're switching companies, your coverage will normally end on the last day of the week of the contract that you just finished. And then you'd have 2 weeks basically without insurance. But you can use COBRA insurance to cover that 2 week period if you really need it, which is, so, I mean, you don't have to worry about a gap in insurance, which is usually most people's concern.
And you can even sign up retroactively, right?
Yeah. So the great thing about COBRA is, say you have that 2 week break, you didn't need to you didn't have any medical expenses during that time, you'd never have to sign up. But say after that 2 week break, you went to the emergency room for something, or, you got sick and you went to urgent care, or you had some medical bill, you can sign up retroactively, and then COBRA would cover that expense, which is a really, really great thing about COBRA.
Yeah. We've recently discovered too that there are some companies, especially like some smaller companies, that have more flexibility on when the benefits cover you. We were always told by some of the bigger companies that it's just like automatic, like either your insurance starts on day 1 or maybe it's day 30 or whatever of your contract, and then it ends on the last day, and that's just how it is. But we've actually recently found out some of the smaller companies have the ability to cover you after your contract ends for up to like a month, 2 weeks to a month, regardless of whether you're taking your next contract with them, as long as you pay in advance, like pay your premium in advance.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat, and that's something to ask about. So these are some questions that you would want to know when you're learning about the benefits of different companies.
Yeah, and the other thing with COBRA is, say that the company you're going to, not every company has insurance that starts on day 1. So say insurance starts on day 30 for that other company. You could stay on COBRA until you're eligible for their insurance. So I mean, you could use that while you're working with a new company to supplement that time so that you're not without insurance.
Yeah. And this is another reason that some people choose to get their own insurance. It can be pretty costly, but some people just prefer to have their insurance so that they can always get the best jobs and not worry about which company it's with and switching. And then they just have continuous medical coverage, especially people that have more medical issues or need medication or whatever on a regular basis. They don't want to have these doubts of, am I going to have coverage or am I not going to have coverage?
Yeah, I would say for people with chronic illnesses, that is probably the way to go. For people that are generally pretty healthy, don't have a lot of medical expenses, don't even go to a physician that often, then you're probably fine just switching, using COBRA if you need it between contracts. But I don't think that I would, as a young, healthy person, sign up on the exchange and pay full price when you can get insurance coverage pretty cheap through the companies.
Yeah. So in general, that's the biggest hassle of switching between companies. So we might keep in contact with company A, B, and C all the time whenever we're searching for jobs. But back when we were working we're working sort of part-time now, so it's not as big of a deal. But back when we were working full-time and we were worried about getting our benefits back to back to back, we would be in contact with 3 companies, but the one that we took the majority of our jobs with, if all things were equal, if they had a pretty decent job option or the same as the other 2, we would be more inclined to stay with them, so we didn't have to restart our insurance. So if the 3 companies had the same job, we would pretty much always take it with the one company.
Yeah.
The other reason was we had our 401k with the one company. So if we wanted to continue contributing to our 401k each contract, we tried to stay with that company, but we did always keep our options open every single job search. And there were once or twice where another company had, like, for example, an outpatient job in North Carolina that we really wanted, and our main company that we liked the best and tended to take most of our job was with, just didn't have it. So we did switch for that job, and then we went back the next job to our main company. So it can be done, and we do recommend that if you're trying to find certain settings or certain states, that you really keep your options open and just sort of deal with the ebbs and flows in the benefits.
Yep.
So that's most of what we wanted to cover. We want to answer any questions that you guys have. So if you are watching, please just leave us a comment below if you have a question. If you're watching on the replay, you can leave us a question as well. If you guys are watching as well, we would love if you would just give us a thumbs up or give us a heart on the video. That way, more people can see it and more people can join the conversation later and learn about this information. So we'd really appreciate it. If you've gotten value out of this video, just give us a thumbs up on the video.
Yep. So Jeff said, are you guys going to go live each week while in Europe? So our plan right now is to try to do a live video each week while we're traveling around Europe. We're going to be gone for the next, I guess,
almost 4 months.
15 Sundays after today. We'll be out of the country. So we're going to try to. It just depends on the Wi-Fi situation. It's also going to be kind of weird because we'll be 6 hours ahead for the most part. So we're not going to be able to do Sunday like we normally do at 8. So we'll have to figure out a different time.
Yeah, right now we're thinking we're going to probably try to keep it on Sundays, but it'll probably have to be 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time, because then 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time is going to be 10 or 11 p.m. at night where we are, which we're kind of night owls anyway, so it's okay if we did a video like after we were done and gone out for the day sightseeing and then came back after dinner and sat down to try to do a video at 10 or 11 p.m.
Yeah.
But we'll have to just announce it each week just to make sure. But that's our goal right now, is probably Sunday mid-afternoon, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
But we'll update you and let you know for sure.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions on a time that works for you guys, we might do a poll.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we thought Sunday night was pretty good, but I know Sunday midday might be a little harder for some people. So yeah, we'll kind of touch base with you guys, and you let us know what you think is a good time. Okay, so we got another question here from Aiden. Just wanted to say, wow, thanks so much for the reference to Medbridge. Oh, I don't guess it's not a question. I guess it's a shout out.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Aiden.
So yeah, you can get CEUs at Medbridge with code FifthWheelPT. That's
some
awesome.
Supporters.
Thanks for using it.
Lauren wants to know, have you ever worked with ProLink Healthcare? I've heard they have a lot of exclusive contracts in my area. I'm trying to find a recruiter recommendation. No, I haven't. I don't think I've heard of ProLink. Yeah, I could maybe ask around, but that's not one I'm familiar with. It might be a smaller company.
I would imagine it's a smaller company.
Yeah, so interesting. But yeah, sometimes you can find those little small companies that have exclusive contracts, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would hold off on calling. We can ask and see if anyone else has heard of them and try to get a recommendation for you. But we really try not to call those numbers so that you don't get put on their list and you get calls from everyone.
Right. Okay. So yeah, anybody else if you have any questions about working with different companies or recruiters, please just leave them below. You can send us a message. If you guys would like to know which recruiters we work with, we'd be happy to give you some information on that. If you just want to comment recruiter below or send us a message, we'd be happy to give you some information. But I hope that helps clear up how it works working with multiple recruiters and companies.
Ryan says, do y'all have any regrets about choosing to buy the fifth wheel and use that for housing? We are definitely thinking about going that route eventually. Do you think you save a substantial amount of money in the long run? So this is a timely question. We're going to pick up the fifth wheel tomorrow. We're still trying to sell it. I would say that we have probably broken even financially since we got it. So I would not say that we really benefited significantly as far as money is concerned. But we have had a much easier time finding housing while we've been traveling. So I would say overall, I don't regret it.
No, not at all. I mean, in the beginning, we thought we were going to come out a lot more financially ahead, but I think that we didn't really know how much they were going to depreciate. We bought both of them used, and we had them for 3 years, going on for 3.5 years. Yep. And basically the value has depreciated a lot more than we realized, and we found it's been a lot more challenging to try to resell a used RV and a used truck. I think the truck not so much, more the camper is harder to sell. Yep. So yeah, we definitely lost some money on the upfront cost, but I would say it was a fun experience. It really taught us a lot about minimalist living. It made it easier moving from place to place. It made it so we had a lot more certainty about our housing. I think as a couple, it's a really good idea,
Yeah.
especially a couple that has like a dog or a cat. It's a really good idea.
And like I talked about in an article in the past, and we talked about in, I think the video we made about traveling in a RV, I talked about some of the costs, the pros and cons, and yeah, so we probably save somewhere around $400 or $500 a month in housing each month, but we probably lost, it's hard to say how much in depreciation, but I would say in the end we probably broke about even financially. So if you're doing it specifically for finances, you can go either way. And like I always say, it depends on how long you're going to be traveling. So if you're only going to be traveling a year, don't get a camper. If you're going to be traveling 3 years, then it's kind of, you could go either way. If you're going to be traveling for more than 3 years, I would say that's a good idea.
It all depends too on how good of a deal you can get. If you go into debt to get a new one, no, you're not going to come out ahead financially. If you get a new truck and a new camper or a new motorhome, 1-unit motorhome, you're not going to come out ahead financially, and you're going to have a payment on it and interest and all that stuff. So if you're in it for financial gain, definitely get a gently used truck, a gently used camper. Hope for the best on the resale value, or some people plan to just keep theirs just for fun and aren't worried about the cost. So, just think about the financial aspects of it.
But the ease of finding housing is a huge perk. Like, we have never really had much trouble finding housing, and we can do it so quickly. We normally have our place set up within like an hour or two of accepting a contract. So it's that's a big benefit of it.
Yeah, and it definitely made the stress of wondering if there was going to be housing or not a lot easier, because when you find out about a contract, you can just immediately look and see if there's a campground or not. But you can't immediately look and see if there's going to be an apartment available.
Yep, and I guess one other thing to mention is we figured out on this last contract where we didn't go through the camper, even though it doesn't seem like you're packing that much stuff when you're moving, it's still always such a hassle moving in and out of an apartment or of a room or whatever. Whereas the fifth wheel, it would only take us a couple hours to get everything stored away so that nothing would break, loaded up, and go. It was so much easier.
So much nicer. And then, like, especially for girls, I know we have different seasons of different clothes. And
Yeah, you just
shoes.
leave the clothes in the dresser and in the closet. It's really simple.
It's so nice. I just kept whichever season I wasn't using, I keep it underneath the bed in the storage area, and then I swap it out seasonally, but I don't have to worry about, like, going back home and switching out my clothes and that sort of thing. So it's so much easier in those terms. I mean, there were struggles along the way, but I think it grew us closer, actually, as a couple. It was a lot of fun. And,
Yep.
yeah, it was interesting. So
hopefully that helps. The real answer is it depends. We don't regret it, but it depends on how long you're going to be traveling.
yeah. So if anybody has any more questions for us, feel free to shoot us a message or comment on the video. And if anybody wants recruiter recommendations for who we work with, even if you're watching on the replay, you can either leave us a comment or send us a message.
Yep. Thanks for watching,
And
guys. We'll see you from Portugal. No, wait. We'll be in
Spain.
I
No,
think
we'll be in Portugal.
No. I think we'll be in Spain. We'll be in Madrid.
We'll be in Madrid.
Madrid on Sunday. So we might see you from Madrid.
We
That
might
would
see
be
you from
pretty cool.
Madrid. We'll see.
All right.
Bye,
See you later,
guys.
guys.